Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. If you're tired of censorship, outraged by government abuses, and thirsty for real insights, then you're in the right place. Get ready, because here, the fight for freedom never ends. Here's your host, Professor Nick Giordano.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. As your host, Nick Giordano, I am glad you could join me. Make sure to follow and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, leave the P.A.S. Report a 5-star rating. Take 30 seconds to leave a good review. And let's get right into it today, because the calls for Curtis Sliwa to drop out of the race so Andrew Cuomo can take on Mamdani, that right there is the perfect example of why Republicans keep losing elections here in New York City and throughout the state. They never learn. They cave, they surrender, and this is exactly the kind of political insanity that makes people hate politics so much. It's the type of nonsense that proves how short the public's memory really is, because if there's one person who doesn't deserve a second chance at power, it's Andrew Cuomo. Do you think Democrats would ever do that? I mean, just look. They're running someone who's a communist. You see Democrats all falling in line. Just the other day, you had Hakeem Jeffries bow down to Mamdani and give him an endorsement. It shows how far left the party has moved and how they always protect their own. Meanwhile, you have Republicans who are quick to throw their own under the bus. Here we are, watching supposed Republicans flirt with the idea of resurrecting the man who ran this state like his own personal fiefdom. The same Cuomo who told conservatives that they weren't welcome in New York State, someone who ruled with fear and intimidation, who left behind a trail of destruction in New York that we still haven't recovered from, but Republicans are going to tell you that he is the only chance that exists to prevent Mamdani from becoming the next mayor of New York City. It's a bunch of nonsense. And a poll released the other day shows that in a one-on-one match with Mamdani, Sliwa outperforms Cuomo by 2 points. Mamdani is at 49%, Sliwa at 41%, Cuomo at 39%. Now, it's only 2 points. It's within the margin of error, and other polls show the opposite. But the truth is that Republicans don't win by supporting Democrat candidates. And I want to be crystal clear here. This isn't about just one race. First off, the implications go well beyond New York City. Secondly, this is about what happens when people forget, when they tune out, and we're witnessing a revisionist type history go on. So let's refresh some people's memories out there, because clearly a lot of folks, both in New York and around the country, need a refresher on who Cuomo really is, especially Republicans, because Andrew Cuomo isn't some moderate, middle-of-the-road centrist as he's trying to present himself now. Sure, he's not an anti-Semite like Mamdani is. He's not a communist. However, he is an authoritarian who governed through bullying and manipulation. Is he really that much different than Mamdani in the grand scheme of things? He used the media to prop up his image while crushing anyone who dared to question him. Remember when he said conservatives have no place in New York? That was just the start of it. It wasn't a slip of the tongue. That was Cuomo telling a couple of million New Yorkers to pack up and leave New York State. And then what about COVID? Because that's when we really saw Cuomo, the true Cuomo. Not the guy who did daily press conferences with his smug grin and whiny voice. It's the guy who weaponized fear to control people's lives. He told children that if they didn't follow the COVID decrees, they might kill their grandparents. Think about that. Who the hell tells little kids that they don't want to be responsible for killing grandma and grandpa? The fact is that he psychologically traumatized kids to score political points. And it wasn't just the fear. It was the social isolation, the lockdowns, the school closures. And for all those that complained, well, it was a pandemic and we didn't know what we were dealing with. The fact is, most of what they were pushing turned out to be wrong, and people like myself and others were calling them out on it. Cuomo didn't lead during the coronavirus. He dictated. He didn't manage the crisis. He micromanaged our lives. And while he was busy lecturing everyone about doing the right thing, he was writing a book bragging about his so-called leadership in the middle of the pandemic, using your tax dollars, because his staff was doing it. And let's not forget his single worst decision, sending COVID-positive patients to nursing homes. Thousands of elderly New Yorkers died because of that decision, and they had to die alone because families were not allowed to visit with their loved ones. So you had families losing their loved ones that never had to die in the first place. And then instead of owning it, what did Cuomo do? Well, he tried to cover it up. His administration deliberately withheld data. They wanted to hide the real death toll, all because it was going to hurt Cuomo's political career. That's not leadership. That's what we call corruption, pure and simple. And that's who Emperor Cuomo really is. He's not the steady hand that the media once portrayed him as. He is a man so obsessed with power and ego that he destroyed lives and lied about it. And while the press is busy giving him an Emmy for his COVID briefings, and yes, they literally gave this guy an Emmy. You had small businesses across the state being wiped out, all because Emperor Cuomo decided to dictate what businesses were essential and which ones weren't. He shut down entire industries. He destroyed livelihoods, crushed small businesses, and when anyone pushed back, he called them selfish and dangerous. He had the arrogance to dictate when, where, and how people could exercise their faith, where people can go when they leave their home, what they must wear. He didn't lead through science, he led through arrogance, and yet somehow, some way, only in the stupid minds of certain people, they're saying that he's the savior of New York politics. Give me a break. And if you think that wasn't enough, I mean, just look at his role. Let's talk about the 2020 riots. Remember, New York City burning, businesses being looted, police officers being attacked during the fiery but peaceful protests. Where was Cuomo then? Where was he? He refused to deploy the National Guard. He refused to restore any semblance of order. In fact, he blamed the NYPD instead of taking responsibility. He stood back while hardworking New Yorkers, people who already suffered through lockdowns, watched their businesses get destroyed by mobs. And what did Cuomo say? He said, well, it was a righteous cause. That's right. The emperor justified lawlessness. He enabled the chaos, and to this day, the city still hasn't recovered. He was the guy that pushed through bail reform. It wasn't Kathy Hochul. It was Cuomo that pushed through bail reform, leading to a surge in crime where you had violent criminal offenders, some that had been arrested 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, being re-released into communities that they could victimize once again. That's the real Cuomo. And when people talk about how Curtis Sliwa should drop out of a race to give Cuomo a chance, I have to ask, what kind of chance are we talking about? Is Mamdani and Cuomo really all that different? Cuomo proved who he really was, and yet for some reason there's certain Republicans that want to just forget the past. And I would just be blunt. Cuomo's a jerk. He's a jerk. Anyone who knows him knows that he is infamous for how he treats people, how he bullies his subordinates, screams colleagues, threatens political opponents, rules through fear. Even members of his own party don't like him, and it's why he got trounced in the Democratic primary. Cuomo isn't some misunderstood guy. He's a political thug. And when he left office, well, why did he leave office? He didn't retire. He didn't step down to focus on his family or anything like that. He resigned in disgrace after multiple sexual harassment allegations. You had the Department of Justice investigating the nursing home deaths. You had an ethics scandal involving his taxpayer-funded book deal. The only reason that he's even around politics again is because of his ego. You have a media, you have the political elites in the state, including Republicans. They have the collective memory of goldfish. They forget the abuses, the lies, the arrogance. And unfortunately, too many voters out there forget too. This is the problem in New York, and it's not just New York. It's in blue cities and blue states around the country. You have people that move on way too fast. They ignore what's right in front of them. They forget what these politicians actually did when they were in office, and they get caught up. They get caught up in name recognition or nostalgia or some type of illusion of stability. And what happens? They just recycle the same corrupt candidates who drove the state and the country to the ground. Andrew Cuomo is not the answer. He is part of the problem here in America. He represents everything that's wrong with politics, the ego, the entitlement, the lack of accountability. And Republicans want to call on Sliwa to drop out of the race for Cuomo. That's political malpractice. Listen, when you look at Curtis Sliwa, may not be the greatest campaigner. I mean, he seems to have found his footing in the last 2 weeks. Maybe he wasn't the greatest campaigner, but he's been out here in New York City fighting for New Yorkers, not just since he started his mayoral run. He's been out there for decades. He's always been on the streets. He's a street guy. He talks to the people. He understands the people. He understands law and order. He understands the importance of New York City and what a safe city needs to be. And if Republicans can't even stand behind their own candidate in one of the most important races in this election cycle, then what do they really stand for? Let the voters decide. And you know what? People say, well, if Sliwa doesn't drop out of the race, Mamdani's going to win. Well, then let the chips fall where they may. Because at the end of the day, the people of New York will get the government they deserve. But one thing is certain, Andrew Cuomo doesn't deserve a second chance to ruin this city. He doesn't deserve a second chance to ruin this state again. And when we come back, I'm going to explain why this mentality, this toxic mentality, the surrender mentality, the obsession with we have to choose between the lesser evil is exactly why Republicans lose elections. It's exactly why they don't win the cities. You can't win when you keep playing defense. You can't win when you surrender. You can't win when you abandon these places. And I'm going to explain it all. So hang tight and I'll be right back. It's no secret that as we age, our bodies begin to break down. Now, if you want to move with ease and keep your skin glowing and youthful, you got to try Native Path Collagen. It's made with only type 1 and 3 collagen. These are the two most important types that make up 90% of your body's collagen, and they're found in your skin, bones, joints, and gut. They deliver powerful benefits without any fillers or additives. I have it every morning with my coffee, and it's a single ingredient, flavorless powder that mixes easily into the coffee. But you could also put it in smoothies, oatmeal. It's third-party tested for purity, and it absorbs fast thanks to its peptide form. With over 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, and 8,000 5-star reviews, Native Path is a brand you could trust, backed by a 365-day no-risk guarantee, live phone support where you talk to a real person. They make it easy to get started. So check out the bundle deals and join their private Facebook group for recipes and support. Visit getnativepath.com/PAS. That's getnativepath.com/PAS. Welcome back to the P.A.S. Report podcast. Now, I know many of you out there are tired of the surrender politics of the Republicans, as I am. You're tired of the same old Republican establishment who believe that we're in a blue city or we're in a blue state, and given that we're grossly outnumbered, we have to back a Democrat, even though these people have a track record of failure. This logic has failed time and time again. And here's what has me so annoyed. Since the mayoral race, the same Republican officials and pundits that are calling for Sliwa to drop out of the race, they didn't say a damn thing for months, for the last year and a half. They didn't provide any support whatsoever. They didn't come out and back Sliwa when he was the Republican nominee. Now, 2 weeks before the election, before the race, they want to come out of the woodwork and call for him to drop out. Now, all of a sudden, they care. Now they have a sense of urgency. I mean, go F yourself. Where were these people when Cuomo got trounced in the Democrat primary against Mamdani? They should have been screaming for Cuomo to drop out of the race, not waiting until the 11th hour to stab Curtis Sliwa in the back. But that's the Republican establishment for you. Always reactive. They're never proactive. They're reactive. They sit on their hands when it matters and then panic when the clock's running out. Where were they when Cuomo embarrassed himself in the primary? Where were they when Mamdani crushed him and exposed how irrelevant Cuomo has become in his own political party? Well, these people were silent. Not a word from them, not a whisper. No op-eds, no press conferences, no TV appearances calling him out, nothing. Why didn't they put pressure on him to drop out of the race? Now, suddenly these people want to play kingmaker? They think they're being strategic by pushing Cuomo as the savior? And what are they doing? Well, they're doing exactly what Democrats want them to do, implode from within, divide the Republican Party. It's pathetic. This is the same old Republican playbook that's been tried and failed for decades in New York. It's failed in other blue states. Instead of standing behind someone like a Curtis Sliwa, someone who has the guts to challenge the system, they want to throw their weight behind a disgraced former governor who represents everything they claim to oppose. And you want to talk about insanity? That's insanity right there. The amount of people I see, I'm going to hold my nose and vote for him. I don't like him, but I'm going to hold my nose. That's insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. They claim it's all about electability. And that word drives me nuts because every time Republicans talk about electability, what they really mean is capitulation. And every single time it backfires. You don't win elections by pretending to be Democrats. You win elections by offering real alternatives, by standing for something and being unapologetic about what you actually stand for. And it's not just the politicals that are bothering me. It's ordinary Republicans, ordinary New Yorkers, too, that really are aggravating me. I mean, the complaints that I've heard from ordinary Republicans are absolutely ridiculous. Some will say, well, Sliwa's not a good candidate. Republicans should have chosen someone else. Are you serious? I mean, I hate to repeat myself, but how is Cuomo any better? Cuomo got trounced by Mamdani. He's not even out there really campaigning, and his policies were a disaster. How is he any better? Mamdani is a friggin' communist. But yeah, let's say that Sliwa is the bad choice in this election. He's a bad candidate. Okay, so the communist is better? I mean, that's the stupidity we're dealing with. Others say they can't take him seriously because he wears the red beret. Again, I have to ask, are you serious? That's what you want to nitpick about? The man's beret? Okay, he wears a red beret, so what? That's really going to be a line in the sand for some of you? Oh, his silly personality is quirky. That's the hill you want to die on? Because I really want to get this straight. You'd rather let New York City, the financial capital of the world, go communist because you don't like Curtis Sliwa's hat. Is that what I'm to make of this? That's a brilliant strategy. I mean, when you want to talk about peak Republican genius, we can't support the guy who's actually out there fighting for New Yorkers because, oh no, my God, he wears a red beret. And this is the problem with too many. They care more about the optics than the actual outcomes. They'll sit there. They'll dissect the color of someone's hat while socialists are taking over the city. You've got Mamdani running around talking about abolishing capitalism. You have Cuomo that destroyed the state. And the idiots out there are worried about a beret. I've had others tell me, well, you don't live in this city. And even though I might despise Cuomo, I'm still going to support him because he's better than Mamdani. Now, first of all, I may not live in the city, but this race certainly impacts Long Island, but it also impacts the country as a whole. So I'm going to say whatever I want, and I don't care if it annoys people. But more importantly, if Mamdani does win, or if by some miracle Cuomo wins, then I never want to hear any Republican who lives in New York City and voted for Cuomo to complain ever, ever again. You lose your right to complain the moment you knowingly vote for the very people responsible for destroying this city. You lose the right to complain the moment you sit on your hands and stay home because you say Republicans can't win an election. You can't cry about crime, corruption, taxes, transportation, the traffic, the cost of living. When you cast a ballot for the same failed leadership that actually caused the problems in the first place, or you don't cast a ballot at all. So if you choose Cuomo, you're endorsing everything he did, the lockdowns, the corruption, the nursing home, the debts, the bail reform, the arrogance, the abuse of power. And hopefully you own that. Because at some point, voters have to take responsibility. You can't keep electing the same tyrants and then act shocked when you get the same results. You can't sit home and stay away from elections because you feel your guy won't win and let a communist come in and take office. And for Republicans who think voting for Cuomo is some kind of brilliant strategic move, spare me. It's the most idiotic thing I've heard of. It's not strategy, it's stupidity. You're not being pragmatic. Instead, you're being played. You just don't realize it. So yeah, if Mamdani or Cuomo wins, don't come crying about the cost of living, the crime, the incompetence. You helped make it happen. Elections have consequences, and so does apathy. And the sooner people start realizing that, the sooner maybe, just maybe, we could start to turn New York City around. And for all those ordinary Republicans complaining about Sliwa, saying Sliwa doesn't stand a chance, I want to know, did you volunteer for his campaign to try and give him a chance? Did you go door to door trying to tell people about Curtis Sliwa, what he represents, what his platform is? Did you make phone calls trying to persuade people to support Curtis Sliwa? Did you donate $5, $10 to his campaign? Did you hand out any flyers, go to any rallies, share social media posts? Of course, most of you didn't. And most of the people saying he doesn't have a chance are the same ones who sit on the sidelines and do absolutely nothing except complain. You can't sit back and refuse to engage and then act all shocked when Democrats keep winning. Politics isn't some spectator sport. You don't get to whine about losing if you didn't show up to play the game. And if Republicans actually put half the energy they spend complaining into supporting candidates like Sliwa, New York may look actually a lot different. But that's the problem right there. You have this apathy, this defeatist and surrender mentality, and it's not just in New York, it's in other places too. And we need to take a quick break. But when we come back, I'm going to talk about what happens if Mamdani wins, what it means when socialism and communism take hold in New York, and why, at the end of the day, the real blame isn't on the Mamdanis. The real blame isn't on the Cuomos. The real blame doesn't fall on just the politician. It falls on the people who either stay home or keep voting for them. So hang tight. I'll explain it all when we get back from this quick break. Welcome back to the P.A.S. Report podcast. I hope you're enjoying this episode. And to all the listeners out there, share this episode far and wide because we need it to penetrate the thick skulls that exist out there. And I would appreciate if you go to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, give the P.A.S. Report a 5-star rating, take 30 seconds, write a good review, because that's how we grow the audience. That's how we build a movement. And for this segment, I want to talk about what happens if Mamdani wins, because make no mistake, if he does, New York City is going to take a massive step, not just towards socialism, but to outright communism. And here's the scary part. It won't be because the left was brilliant or because Mamdani ran some great campaign. It'll be because too many people sat on their hands, because you had too many Republican elites telling people to go and vote for Cuomo as our only chance to win an election. Too many Republicans and independents shrugging their shoulders, saying, what's the point? It's New York. It's hopeless. And you know what's hopeless? That kind of attitude. That's what's killing the city. It's not just the politicians, it's the people who refuse to engage, because when you stop caring, when you stop voting, when you stop fighting, you leave a vacuum. And radicals like Mamdani are more than happy to fill it. That's exactly what they've done. And all you have to do is look and listen to Mamdani, what he stands for. Here's a guy who every time he talks about 9/11, do you ever hear him criticize those who perpetrated the worst attack on U.S. soil? Do you ever hear him say anything bad about Al-Qaeda or Osama bin Laden? Does he even bring them up? Does he talk about all the innocent people that died, not just that day, but all those that died from 9/11 related illnesses since then? No, he doesn't do that. Instead, what does he do? Well, he accuses New Yorkers of being Islamophobic. I mean, just the other day, he went out there with his crocodile tears about how his aunt stopped taking the subway after 9/11 because of all those racist and intolerant New Yorkers, as if she is the real victim of 9/11. And I don't believe that story for a second. I don't believe it for a second. Okay? Americans and New Yorkers are good and decent people. Are there some jerks in society? Yeah, there's some jerks. Are there some racists and bigots in society? Yeah, there are some of those. But the truth is, we are decent, good human beings. And just the other day, if you listen to him carefully, he always frames 9/11 as bigotry and hatred towards Muslims. And I will call it out every time because we have an obligation to point out what really happened that day. I will not let this fool get away with trying to reframe 9/11 as Islamophobic rather than a terror attack by radical Islamists who killed over 8,000 Americans, 3,000 that day, and the thousands who have died from 9/11 related illnesses since then. Not for nothing, but he should lose just because of that. But putting that aside, this is someone who openly embraces Marxist ideology. He talks about ending capitalism, reimagining our economy, and it's not hidden. It's not like it's coded language. It's out there for everyone to see. It's the one thing I will give Mamdani credit for. He doesn't hide who he is. He's telling you exactly what he wants to do. He wants government-run grocery stores. Government-run grocery stores that are just an endless money pit for taxpayers and threatens local grocery stores and bodegas. He wants 911 operators to decide whether or not we need to send a social worker or a cop to respond to life-threatening emergencies. He wants to close prisons. He wants to release those who have victimized the community, some who have rap sheets, dozens of pages long. He wants to release them back into the communities only to victimize them again. He refuses to condemn those who chant globalize the intifada. He refuses to condemn people that say to the river, to the sea. He is an anti-Semite. That much is clear. What more do you need? Oh, you want more? I'll give you more. He wants taxpayers to pay for buses and subway fares for all of New Yorkers, all of the New York City residents. You, the taxpayer, are going to be responsible for that. And not only that, you own a home? Well, he stated his desire to abolish private property. He wants to control housing costs. This guy is a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. I did an entire episode like 3 or 4 years ago on the Democratic Socialists of America and what they stand for. This is the group that wants to nationalize industries. This is a group that wants to defund the police, replace American capitalism with government control through a central planning system. And instead of being laughed off the stage, Mamdani is being embraced by the Democratic Party. I never thought I'd see today that you have a sitting congressman, Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, endorsing him. That's not like a fringe activist. This is the top Democrat in the House of Representatives. And if that doesn't tell you how far left this party has gone, nothing will. This is not your grandfather's Democratic Party. This is not the JFK Party. It's not the Clinton Party. It's not even the Barack Obama Party at this point. It's not about the working class Americans anymore. It's about control. It's about central planning. It's about reshaping our society around their dangerous ideology rather than the reality that we live in. It's about a mix of communism and Islamism. And the saddest part is that voters enable these types of politicians. See, I could blame Mamdani all day long. I could talk about how his policies are dangerous to New York, how it's a threat to the United States. It's a threat to everything the founding fathers envisioned. We can blame the media. The media, what is it? 6 media companies control 90% of the news that flows to the people. You have this far left activist media that tries to push the Democrat talking points. So, yeah, we could blame them. We could blame the unions. Obviously, all the unions constantly will kowtow the Democrat line, will help the Democrat politicians. We could blame the bureaucrats, and they certainly deserve their share of the blame. But at some point, don't we have to start looking in the mirror? I was talking about this with Tom Scholero on his radio program the other day, Your Island with Tom Scholero. And at some point, the voters bear the responsibility because this didn't happen overnight. We didn't get to this point in our society, not just here in New York City, not just in New York State, but throughout the entire country. We didn't just get to this moment over the course of the last year. This has been decades in the making, and it happened because too many people stopped showing up. If I focus on just New York City, understand that barely a third of eligible voters even bother to vote in local elections. If I look at the last 4 mayoral races, only 23 to 26% of voting eligible population in New York City came out to vote. That's it. You're talking about 74 to 77% that just didn't participate, didn't bother to go to the polls to vote. Now, in this election cycle, we're probably going to see something similar. I think there may be a little uptick in voter turnout. Mamdani's base is enthusiastic. There's a lot more attention on this mayoral race than the previous ones. But what do you think it's really going to be at the end of the day? 2 out of 3 of every eligible voter can't be bothered. They're too busy to go and vote. They'll complain about the crime. They'll bitch about the filth, the taxes, the corruption. But come election day, they're just too busy. Nowhere to be found. And the ones who do show up are mostly the activists, the radicals, the people who are organized, motivated, the people hell-bent on not just reshaping New York City in their own image, but they want to reshape the country. And that's why you have these far-left candidates that they keep on winning in these places. Not because they're the majority. They're not the majority. It's because the majority has actually checked out. That's the problem. And people will say, my vote doesn't really matter. Really? I want you to tell that to the business owner whose store was looted while these politicians defended rioters. Tell that to the families who lost loved ones because of bail reform that just put criminals back on the streets. Tell that to the loved ones who lost family members because we're sanctuary city or sanctuary state. Tell that to the teachers and the parents dealing with classrooms that aren't about education, but they're about activism. See, your vote matters. Your voice matters. But if you don't use it, you're surrendering it to the people who want to destroy everything this city stands for. And don't think that it ends in New York. I mean, not every one of you out there is from New York, but understand what happens when it doesn't stay here. What happens when it begins to spread? We've already seen what happens when cities like New York, Chicago, and San Francisco go off the rails. It begins to bleed out. Bleeds out into the suburbs, bleeds out into the rural communities, seeps into other state, changes national policy. And the decline of New York doesn't just affect the 5 boroughs. It affects the entire country. I mean, this is the financial capital of the world. What do you think's going to happen to our economy when it crumbles? What do you think? Ripple effects are going to be enormous. You're going to have businesses leave, families flee. Who's going to get left behind? Well, the people who can't afford to move. People like you and I, we're going to be the ones that are screwed. The working class, the very people Democrats claim to represent. It's not just economics. It's also a cultural thing, too. Because when a city like New York normalizes the far-left politics that we're seeing, it sets the tone for the rest of the nation. And when you see politicians like Mamdani, and people say, oh, you're Islamophobic for saying that. No. When he's sitting there smiling with an imam that is named as an unindicted co-conspirator of 9/11, when he celebrates and says good things about that imam, that's a problem. And I know Bloomberg appeared with this imam too. He shouldn't have. That wasn't right then, and I would have called it out then if I had the podcast. When I look at Mamdani's father, who says that the United States is the most evil country on the planet, that we're the ones that inspired Hitler. Are you kidding me? Should we ignore what's going on in European countries, what's going on in Britain? Because that's what they want. And the bottom line is, if Mamdani wins, or if Cuomo somehow manages to crawl his way back into office, God help us, the blame isn't on them. We know who they are. They're not lying to us. Cuomo's been exposed. Mamdani is actually an honest person. The ones to blame are the voters who actually made it possible. That's who is to blame. And I'm tired of hearing people say we need better candidates. That may be true, but we also need better voters. We need people who are going to be informed, engaged, and actually willing to fight for their communities, not just sit on their ass and complain all day long about the problems their communities face, not just criticize the politicians, but go out, go knock on doors, go make phone calls, go help candidates, volunteer for their campaigns, do internships. Because the greatest threat to this country isn't the corrupt politicians. It's the bureaucracy that is grown into the 4th branch of government that operates independently from the other branches. But it's also an apathetic public that lets all these people stay in power, that doesn't demand accountability. We get the government we deserve. And if we keep electing communists, socialists, the career politicians who abuse their power, then we deserve the consequences. You can't keep voting for the same ideology and then act shocked. You can't vote for people who hate capitalism and then want to complain about the economy. You can't vote for people who hate the police and then complain about crime. That's not how this works. And so if you live in New York, this election is your chance to send a message, not just to the Democrats, but to the weak and feckless Republicans too. Stop surrendering. Stop making excuses. Stop voting for people who have proven they do not care about you. If New York wants to avoid becoming a communist wasteland, it starts with accountability. It starts with this election. It starts with you, the people. Because at the end of the day, politicians don't change until the voters do. And I'm sorry, but as many faults as Sliwa may have, he is New York City. He is the guy that's been in the streets. He's been in the trenches for 30, 40 years. He understands the city better than either of those candidates. For the rest of the country watching, take notes. Okay, first of all, you can get involved. Even though it's a New York City race, there are ways to get involved. And what happens here is a warning to everyone else. If you don't start waking up, if we don't start showing up, we're going to lose far more than just a city. We're going to lose the very idea of America itself. Now, that's all I got for today. Be sure to share this episode with others, give it a 5-star rating, and take 30 seconds to leave it a good review. Let's stop complaining. Let's start holding people and ourselves accountable.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report. Don't forget to rate, share, and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll never miss an episode. For more exclusive content and updates, visit us at PASreport.com and follow Professor Giordano on all social media platforms at P.A.S. Report.